Are you looking for some action? Keep watching. So as you can see, single action revolver are like the old cowboy revolvers. And what we mean by single action is when I pull the trigger right now, if I try to pull this trigger, nothing happens. I actually have to cock the hammer in order for something to happen. And what happens is pulling the trigger causes one action, and that is releasing the hammer. Single action. Double action revolver. So double action means pulling the trigger causes two things to happen. It causes the hammer to cock, and it causes the hammer to fall forward. That's why it's called a double action revolver. Now, this is actually a double action revolver that can be shot in single action. I can cock the hammer, notice how the trigger moved back, and now I'm operating it in single action. By cocking the hammer, it operates in single action. Pulling the trigger causes one thing to happen, the hammer to fall forward. So that is a double action revolver. So this is what we call a double action semi-automatic. Notice it's not a revolver, and what happens is pulling the trigger causes one thing to happen. Causes a hammer to pull back to cock, and then causes it to drop forward. It's hard to see, but down in there is where the hammer is. So if I bring that up, see if I can focus, you can actually see the hammer move back or rearward as I pull the trigger, and then it drops forward. So what's happening is, as I pull the trigger back, the hammer comes back and drops forward. Let's see if we can get that in frame for you. See the hammer coming back? Bang. That is a double action semi-automatic. So let's take a look at a double single action semi-automatic. What that means is pulling the trigger initially causes the hammer to come back and to fall forward. But as the slide cycles, it leaves the hammer cocked. So it is now single action. First time I pull the trigger, it brings the hammer back. See the hammer moving back? And it will drop it. So what happens is the slide comes back, causing the hammer to cock, and now it is a single action semi-automatic. Double, single, semi-automatic. This is a striker fired semi-automatic. What that means is within the frame there's a striker that causes the cartridge to go off. You don't see it. There's no hammer on the end. A single squeeze causes a striker to drop forward. Again, single squeeze causes that striker to drop forward. So in essence, it is a single action because pulling the trigger will not cause the striker to engage. The slide has to come back in order for the striker to engage. Let me explain that a little bit more. I'll show you how that works. So it acts like this. Let me take this apart. So what happens is, inside the firearm, the striker goes back and is held in place by a spring. That spring. So it holds it in place. So when you pull the trigger, it releases the striker goes forward and strikes the end of the cartridge. It's called striker fired. It's a very simple action of releasing the striker from its spring tension. So to recap, single action pistols. A single thing happens when you pull the trigger, and that is it drops the hammer. Double action pistols. That means two things happen when you pull the trigger. The hammer is cocked and the hammer drops forward. That's double action. Striker fired pistols. Again, the striker is held back by a spring, causing, when you pull the trigger, it causes that striker to move forward. So in essence, they're single action. Pulling the trigger will not cock that spring. The slide has to be moved rearward in order to cock that spring so that it is able to fire. And lastly, break action pistols. And let's not forget, very seldom used, bolt action pistol. So that wraps it up for today. Hopefully that'll help you understand pistol action types. Thanks for watching. Remember to hit subscribe, like, and the notification button. Follow me on Instagram and on Facebook. Be safe, stay positive, God bless. So, are you looking for some action? 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 So are you looking for some action? Are you looking for some action? Keep watching.